They always say the truth comes out in the end, but no one tells you how loud it sounds when a 17-year-old girl walks into a boardroom full of suits and calmly says, "This report has been falsified, sir." That's how it started, like a pin dropping in the middle of storm. Maya Williams' sweatshirt, braid, and a visitor badge swinging just slightly out of line didn't shout, didn't shake, just stood there while every executive in the room stared like they'd seen a ghost. Richard Stratton, CEO of Stratton Capital, had his pen hovering right above the signature line of the biggest IPO of his life. The air in that room had been quiet confidence, the kind that comes right before champagne and headlines. Then Maya dropped that sentence, and everything stalled mid-breath. "What did you just say?" Richard asked real slow. Maya didn't blink. "That report's not accurate. I cross-checked the figures for Project Elevate. The fund allocations don't match the city's public records. 2 vendors listed don't even exist outside of paperwork." One of the board members, Emily Knox, tried to laugh it off. "She's a kid. She doesn't know what she's saying." But Maya kept going, unfazed. "One of those vendors is tied to a PO. Fox and Waco. 3 different invoices, same company, different totals. One's got your initials on it, Emily." The room stiffened. Richard lowered his pen. "Maya, how did you even see this?" She shrugged. "Was waiting for my mom. She works downstairs in accounting. Someone left a copy on the printer. I took a photo. Wasn't trying to dig into anything, but something fell off. So I checked. That's the thing about truth. You can't unsee it. It doesn't need a badge or a title, just someone gutsy enough to call it by name." Emily pushed back hard. "Rick, we've had this reviewed by legal, by finance. We can't delay now." But Richard heard something in her urgency. It didn't sound like disbelief. It sounded like rehearsed denial. And that's when he said it. "I want a few hours." That's all it took. The mood flipped. The deal everyone thought was a done deal suddenly sat still and signed. Maya left the room without looking back. Just said, "Numbers don't lie. Someone in here is." Later, alone in his office, Richard looked through that report again. Those fake vendor names, Bridgecore Solutions, Horizon Grant Works, they sounded legit. But the more he stared, the more something in his gut twisted. That night, he confronted Emily. She didn't flinch, told him Maya was just a kid. But when he mentioned Bridgecore, her smile twitched. She said she'd check with accounting, like it was someone else's fault. He didn't believe her. Not anymore. He called a lawyer, Tara Mendez. Told her to dig. Quietly. Discreetly. She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Give me 24 hours." Back home, Maya was met by her aunt, Evelyn, her mom's sister, the one who'd raised her since the funeral. She told her about the car parked outside, the tinted SUV that hadn't moved. Evelyn didn't panic. She picked up the phone and called Richard. By morning, Richard had security on Maya's building and eyes on Emily's paper trail. Tara called. "Those vendors are shells. Registered to a Cayman account tied to a Michael Knox. Emily's brother." It got worse. They'd forged Richard's signature, slid it into the report. Smooth enough to pass, but not enough to fool the man who'd written that signature 1,000 times. So he called Maya, met her at a diner. She slid in the booth, same navy sweatshirt, same calm stare. "You believe me now?" He nodded. "More than I can say." She handed him a zoning complaint, claimed the land was cleared for Project Elevate, but the city had it marked as green space. "I double-checked the map," she said. "It's fake." That night, they made a decision. No more waiting. No more backroom whispers. They'd walk into that boardroom together, not with questions, but with answers. Next morning, 9 o'clock sharp, Richard entered the boardroom alone. Then Maya followed. She wore a blazer, hair pulled back, holding her tablet like it was a weapon. Emily sat across from them, still polished, still calm. "Shall we begin?" she asked, like nothing had changed. But everything had. Richard laid out the files. "Before we proceed with the IPO, there's a matter of fraud and betrayal that needs addressing." He let Maya take the floor. She showed the flowchart funds routed through shell companies, all under names Emily controlled. The room fell dead silent. Emily stood. "You're trusting a teenager?" "She's not a teenager in here," Richard said. "She's the one who saved your legacy." Tara stepped forward with a flash drive. Here's the recording: Emily and her brother, discussing how they'd pin the blame on Richard. Emily tried to recover. You can't prove intent. You forged my name, Richard said, voice low. You used my trust like a shield. Board members murmured. One by one, heads turned away from Emily. Someone asked, why bring this now? Because, Richard answered, truth deserves light, not a backroom deal. Emily's face cracked. You think this ends with me? She spat. It starts with you, Maya said, eyes unblinking. When federal agents walked in to cuff Emily, she didn't scream. She smiled. You still don't know who you're up against. Richard didn't blink. Maybe, but I know what truth sounds like. And it's not your voice. After it all, the files, the arrests, the fallout, Richard handed Maya a white envelope. Scholarship, he said. Anywhere you want. She held it, hands shaking. Only if I get to intern at Stratton next summer. He smiled. You've already been running the place. That evening, they stood on the rooftop, Maya holding a mug of cocoa, Richard beside her watching the sun go down. She looked out at the skyline. You know, she said quietly, sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it just waits for someone to listen. Richard nodded. And sometimes, he said, that whisper is enough to bring down an empire. Now it's your turn. If this story struck a chord with you, tell us. Would you have spoken up like Maya? Or signed and walked away like everyone else? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk truth. Let's talk justice.